Notice of this meeting was advertised in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Ms. Trueblood?
Present.
Mr. Allen?
Present.
Mr. Gardner?
Present.
Ms. Jackson?
Present.
Mr. Cartier?
Present. Meeting's called to order. Just confirming again, there is no closed session for this evening.
That's correct.
Correct, Council President. Public comments. Anyone wishing to make comments before this council, please come forward, state your name, print your name, and make your comments.
Good evening. My name is Richard Gober. I live at 26 North Hillside Avenue in Ventnor, New Jersey.
Good evening.
Haven't been to a meeting in a long, long time, but I'm glad to be here this evening. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak for a few moments. Number one, I've been involved in Pemberton Township for almost 50 years. I own about 68 properties in Pemberton Township. I own 61 houses in the Sunbury Village section. There was a gentleman named Sidney W. Bookbinder, who was the solicitor, attorney in Burlington, who gave me, Richard Gober, much advice, and I never knew what a mentor was until my wife taught me only about 6 or 7 years ago. But he gave me a lot of advice, and I listened to everything that he said, except for one thing. He said, never hire a relative or somebody you love. Now, I made that mistake, and I had a relative managing my properties for 15 years. I sat down with Dave Patriarca approximately 6 years ago. I owed about $70,000 in back real estate taxes. I was embarrassed. My properties were being sold at tax sale. I had millions of dollars worth of real estate, but unfortunately, you can't eat house. You need the tenants to pay. If they don't pay, they don't stay. I've been involved in Sunbury Village for a long, long time. I've been managing my properties for 4.5 years now. I'm very happy to say things are 1,000% better than they were at that time. I'm here tonight to almost plea to you, we need some help in Sunbury. Number one, I met with the solicitor, I met with the mayor, the chief of police, and I asked for camera surveillance for Sunbury Village about 2.5 years ago. I know that money was a problem, being able to afford to do that. And I asked them to try to reach out and get some help with that money. Go to the county freeholders, to the state, the police association, the bridge commission, reach out and try to get some help with the money. If we had camera surveillance in Sunbury Village, 95% of the crime that we have there would be eliminated in 60 days. Right now, believe it or not, when 95% of the people that live in Sunbury Village are good, honest, decent, hardworking people. They're there for a couple of reasons. The first reason is it's affordable housing, number one. Number two, they happen to have a landlord such as Richard Gober and other landlords like me that firmly believe that everybody deserves a second chance. Many of the tenants, if I did credit checks on my tenants, I probably wouldn't have any tenants. It's as simple as that. They need a second chance, even if it was their third or fourth second chance. Unfortunately, we have that 5%. They're not those good, honest, hardworking people. They're normally the no-account piece of whatever boyfriends that live with the young ladies that for some reason they think they need them. However, a lot of those people that get a second chance appreciate it. Right now, they're afraid to live in Sunbury Village. As you well know, we had a shooting a couple months ago. Someone killed in March out there. There's been another shooting since then. We desperately need camera surveillance. You cannot watch the 11 o'clock news at night without catching somebody on camera and find out who it did it. So all I'm trying to do is trying to motivate everybody here to be on the same page and reach out and try to get the funding. When I hadn't heard back from the administration, I went to the Burlington County Bridge Commission myself. And I went to them and wrote them a letter to the president of the Bridge Commission, and he wrote me back and said, Mr. Gober, he actually called me. He said, Mr. Gober, this can't come from you. This has to come from your elected officials in your municipality to ask for this money. So I don't know, and I'd love to, I'm not exactly sure if I'm allowed to ask, but if I am, have we done anything to try to get camera surveillance money for that development? Am I allowed to ask that question, Mr. Carter? I'm not sure if I can or not.
Yeah, absolutely, you can ask. I mean, Mayor, do you wish to address this?
We've done nothing as far as funding, as I'm sure council knows, for cameras in that area, no.
Have we reached out, Mayor, to other organizations, the state of New Jersey, the county, the Board of Freeholders, the Bridge Commission, the police associations? Have we tried to get them to help us here? That's my question.
We have not asked any of those organizations,
Okay.
no.
Having heard that, I need some help. I just need to try to get a little help in Sunbury Village so the police, so the people there can eliminate that. They're afraid to go to the Acme. You run to the Acme, you come back, somebody's tried to break into your house already. I put up a fence between Kinsley Road and Norcross. I own 6 houses in a row and a vacant lot and houses on the other side. I put a 6-foot stockade fence across that lot, and there was one piece of fence that wasn't up yet, and the kids knew to run. And the police were there, and the kids would run and get through and get over to Kinsley or get over to Norcross. And what happened one day, we put the final piece of fence up, and the kid ran for the fence and got stopped. We're trying to work with the police. I want to be part of the solution. When I took back the management of these properties, I sat down with the chief of police. I said, listen, my tenants are afraid to call the police. There may be people in here tonight or people that didn't come tonight that are actually afraid to stand up and tell you how they feel because they're afraid of retaliation. What happened about 4 months ago? My tenants are all told, if you have a problem, call Richard Gerber. I'll call the police. One night, 11 o'clock, they were shooting paintballs at people's houses and cars. I called 911. One of the female police officers from Pemberton Township called me back and said, Mr. Gerber, what's the problem? I told him, and look, I'm sorry that I'm calling for this reason. She said, Mr. Gerber, we'll be there in 5 minutes. That's our job. Not a problem. It happened the next night. I got a male police officer who called me back. After you call 911, they have the officer call me. And when they called me up, the officer said, Mr. Gerber, are you in Sunbury Village right now? I said, no, I'm not. I'm in Ventnor where I live. Then why are you calling? I said, my tenants are afraid to call. They're afraid to call you. Why are they afraid to call us? Why would they be afraid to call us? That's because, unfortunately, some of the officers, and I'm not blaming all of them, are nervous that if those officers pull up and they go out and speak to you about the problem, and then they walk over to the house who called. And then those people see who called. Or sometimes they'll speak to the person and it'll slip. We got a call from Mr. Jones at 187 Norcross. That's why. This particular officer said, well, they should be calling. I said, sir, excuse me, would you spell your last name for me? I said, to tell you the truth, I'll take care of this tomorrow and speak to the chief about it. I'm going to say goodbye. Don't hang up on me. I said, sir, good night. Have a nice evening. And I hung up. He called right back. I didn't answer. Called back again. I didn't answer. 45 minutes later, he called back and apologized. He said, Mr. Gerber, I'm very sorry. I understand. Now, I appreciated that. I did call the chief of police. I don't know if he called back to apologize because he meant it. I don't know if one of the officers said, you're fooling around with the wrong guy. He's going to talk to the chief tomorrow about this issue. The next issue, and what I don't want to have, I hate to. Can you imagine for a minute being a police officer getting a call at 2 o'clock in the morning, a shooting in Sunbury Village, and you have to make that call and go out there not knowing what's going on? I pray to God I will never stand in front of you and say, I told you so. Is it going to take one of the good, hard-working police officers in this town to get shot in Sunbury Village? A couple years ago, a police car got shot. You know what my tenants told me? It's the best thing that's happened in Sunbury Village in 15 years. That a police car got shot at. And I said, why? Because the police are here all the time now. They're vigilant here. I don't want to stand before you. I'm here to beg you for help for the people that live there. I'm never ashamed to admit this is what I do for a living. If Sunbury Village gets better, Richard Gerber will do better. I'm never ashamed to admit that. I have a scholarship, ladies and gentlemen, in case you don't know it. 31 years. This was my 31st year of giving a scholarship. It's not a big deal. It was a chance to put my money where my mouth was. It's $3,000 to one student. I was killed when Rowan College decided to close our college here. Every time there's an article in the Burlington County Times, I have a 2-paragraph statement that I put online. They should be ashamed of themselves for doing what they did to this township. It was devastating to the blue-collar population in this community. It made me sick. I changed my scholarship. I will not use the word Rowan when I make that presentation, but my scholarship is $3,000, $1,500 a year to a person to go to that college, or to a Votech school. This year's winner is going to a beauty school to learn how to become a beautician. I don't pick the student. I could say just my tenant if I wanted to. The next reason I'm here tonight, excuse me for becoming emotional about that. 35 years ago, 30 years ago, 25 years ago, 20 years ago, 15, 10 years ago, I begged previous mayors and administrations, let's change the name of Sunbury Village. Let's give the people a chance that live there. Let's change the name. I don't get a Sunbury Village tax bill. I get a Pemberton Township tax bill and a utility bill. That name was devised almost 65 years ago. I've given up asking people. We're changing it, by the way. We hope you may endorse us for doing that. We need another name. It will not stop the problems overnight. They'll still call it Sunbury Village for probably 5 or 10 more years. But I can tell you right now, if a young 22-year-old African-American gentleman graduated from Burlington County College and went for a job in Morristown, New Jersey, and got interviewed by an African-American gentleman who then said, "Oh, I see, Harry, you're from Pemberton Township. I'm from Pemberton Township. Where's Norcross Lane? I can't place that." As soon as he says Sunbury Village, he doesn't get the job. It's a shame. It's a pathetic situation, and it should be that way. We will have a new clever name. We hope you'll endorse this. If you don't endorse it, I'm sorry to say, we don't care. Because we're going to start calling it something different. To give the people a chance that live there, that they may. Right now, I have an employee, people say, "Where do you work?" He doesn't say Sunbury Village. He's not working in Pemberton Township. He's embarrassed to say that. So all I'm trying to do is be part of the solution there. We're going to have a name in the next couple of weeks. We're excited about it. Some people don't agree. They can still call it Sunbury Village. I don't care if they do or not. We're just trying to give the residents a chance that live there so they don't have to be embarrassed. That affordable housing keeps them there. 2 other issues, and I appreciate the time, and it'll be very short. You've all got a copy from a letter that I've shared with you because one of my tenants got a letter out in Browns Mills. There was a shooting. You've all had a chance, I hope, to see the video that I sent. Okay? They had bounty hunters that knocked on the door at midnight, pounded on the door, "I'm coming in, I'm coming in." The children were trying to hold the door closed. The mother called the police. The mother ran out, and the door was open, and a dog ran out after the guys. The bounty hunter had a gun drawn outside that house. He shot at the dog. Now, I don't know, I really don't know if that bounty hunter was charged. Is that what we really want in Pemberton Township? To have bounty hunters who come with a star on that looks like they're a police officer? And so that issue, then that created the letters that you all saw. That letter, no one identified themselves. The certified letter sent to Richard Gober did not have an address on the envelope. It had it on the paperwork that I don't get. They get that back from the post office. So finally I found that Mrs. Reynolds had written a letter. And I hear all the scuttlebutt that goes on. I didn't feel that I was treated fairly. That's why I responded. And I also didn't feel that my tenant, my people that were living there. A closing issue, and I appreciate your time again. I own 141 Kinsley Road. The shooting happened approximately, I think, March 21st. The gentleman was shot in a car about 4 or 5 houses away from where my house is. The police were there. They were there, 10, 15 police cars, questioning everybody in the whole wide world for hours and hours and hours. Finally, talked to my tenant, lived at 141 Kinsley, spoke to people that were in my tenant's house at 141. He lives with his girlfriend and their nephew. Another gentleman was visiting, was spoken to. Everybody in the neighborhood was questioned by the police. At 2 o'clock in the morning, the gentleman that was visiting had his girlfriend come from the hospital to pick him up after work. He walked out of the door. The police immediately converged on him and asked him questions. And he left. 2 hours later, the police, a combination of, from what I'm told, and I don't know this exactly, maybe you know better than I, because I haven't been able to get answers about this, the police threw a flash grenade through the bedroom window of that house. That created a big flash. They knocked down the door and immediately went in and put 3 people in handcuffs. They took them outside. Within minutes, they took the handcuffs off. They went inside and took another flash grenade and threw it up in the attic of the house. The house caught on fire. Okay? Then the fire department was called. I have between $5,000 and $10,000 damage in this particular house. First of all, I'm an old man. I'm 71 years old. Whatever happened to, throw your hands up in the air, come out with your hands up, the house is surrounded. This was an attached house. The people sleeping next door, that house could have exploded. If you're not aware of this, and I will gladly share with you, this is happening nationwide right now. I do not believe that the Pemberton Township police were the ones that threw the grenade in through that window. But they've done it before and thrown it into a baby crib. The child went through 9 months of surgery to survive. Do we really want that in this township? That is, in my opinion, with an attached home. And by the way, the warrant was not even for my tenant. The warrant was for 2 men that don't live there, one of which was the gentleman who walked out at 2 o'clock in the morning. So somebody had evidently, I saw Harry go in there, and that was the warrant. And so at that point, I reached out to the chief of police. I was in France at that time. I called, spoke to the secretary. I said, I'm out of the country. If you just email me, I'll call back. I reached out to the officer that he told me that was investigating it. I reached out to Mayor Patriarca. I reached out to the solicitor, or to the administrator. I got no response. Finally, on a Sunday night, the administrator wrote me and said, we're not allowed to discuss this. It's a police matter. All I'm here to say is, somebody, if I were a Pemberton Township official and a Pemberton Township policeman, I don't think that I'd want that state police, without at least complaining, about throwing a flash grenade into that house. If it had blown up, the people in the next house would have gotten killed. Now, none of the people were arrested for anything at that point. So I think if you give me 1 second to look at my notes for a minute, I know I would never have to look at these, but anyway, I think that's it. We probably, by the way, Nancy Palchanis broke my heart when she quit. She was a fantastic, one of the best code enforcement officers I've ever worked with in my 49 years. She would ride by and see sewer coming out of a property. The tenant's not going to call me. If they owe me money, they're not going to call me and tell me that they put sanitary napkins down the toilet and that's what blocked it up. So what happens is, they won't call. Nancy would pick up the phone and call me. 2 hours later, we would resolve the matter. Well, I've been told by various people why she quit. I hope that's not true. I wished her luck. We lost the other young lady, Roxanne, at the same time. They were two extremely, extremely competent people. I never felt harassed by those people. They were always fair. When I took over the management of my business, I went out and inspected the first house that was being inspected. I would never have moved into that house myself. The floors weren't mopped and waxed. The windows weren't cleaned. And I said, Nancy, never mind. Don't inspect the house today. And now I have a checklist. My employees have to do it right. I'm sorry, it is low to middle or affordable housing. It's low-income housing, low to middle-income housing. And believe it or not, one last note, and I'm sorry for the time, and I know you don't have a big crowd tonight, so I feel a little bit better. When I gave that scholarship a couple years ago, and I always tell the staff they can leave because they're going to hear what I've said before. I've only been doing it for about 7 or 8 years now. I didn't know I could. And so what I do is the way you do it now, the audience is out here and the students are here. And I apologize to the audience, and I turn my back on them. And I have a chance to have 125 students looking at me. And I have a chance to give them the Richard Gober super-duper rules of life, family. It all starts with a family. Look at those people out there, good work ethic, etc., etc., etc. And they watch me. I tell them, I'm an old man. I'm 71 years old. You don't have to listen to one thing I say tonight. But maybe, just maybe, something might travel with you a little longer. And I close with this note. I tell them that a few years ago, when I gave the scholarship, I was walking out. The guidance department says, Mr. Gober, you can leave early if you want. I loved it. I used to hear bad things about Pemberton Township High School, not good things. And I've now seen how good it is out there. And so what happened is, I was walking out of the room, and when I was walking out of the room, a lady said, Mr. Gober, excuse me for a moment. May I see you for a moment? I said, yes. She said, I just gave the scholarship you just gave it to my daughter. And I said, thank you very much. And she said, do you mind? Can I get a picture of my daughter? With you? I said, sure. Yeah, thank you. Email it to me. Is that going to be on Facebook in a couple minutes? And so we talked for a few moments, and I started to walk away, and the lady said, Mr. Gober, excuse me, I forgot to tell you something. You gave me this scholarship 21 years ago. I'm an accountant out of McGuire Air Force Base. And guess what, Mr. Gober? I still live in Sunbury Village. And so, with that, thank you very much for your time. I would gladly meet with anybody at any time. I live in Ventnor. I come back at least one night a week, Fridays, to meet with my tenants and meet my people and establish something. Most of my tenants love Richard Gober. Unfortunately, when you get evicted for non-payment of rent, I become the SOB, no good SOB. I only owe them 3 months' rent. I was going to pay them. One last thing, and I'm sorry that I'm taking all your time up. A couple years ago, we had a gentleman that worked for me. He came down the day after Thanksgiving, and my wife was making soup, broth. And she had the carcass. I would have no hint about this, but my wife had the carcass in the pot, and she was making soup broth. And the gentleman said to me, what are you doing? You know, Casey, what are you doing? And my wife said, well, we're making broth. He said, with the bones? What are you doing that? So my wife said, what does your wife cook? And he says, oh, my wife doesn't know how to cook. Well, what do you do for dinner? Oh, well, we get frozen food, we put them in the microwave, or we go out to dinner, or we order food in. So after they left, my wife had a great idea. She said, why don't we go out to the school, and why don't we teach a cooking class at the Nesbitt Center? I thought, that sounds like a good idea. I met Mr. John Machi. I went out and met him. Oh, my God, what a man, okay? They provide 50% of the food. He cooks it. The kids are, Mr. Machi, I won't be here tomorrow. I'm not skipping school. I got a note, you know, but I'll see you next week. And so what happened? I said, John, I'd like to teach a class in the Nesbitt Center and have that. Could you help me? He's rich. The girls out there at 14 know how to get pregnant, but they don't know how to cook. The guys don't know how to cook either. Why don't we start off with this idea? So what happened is he said, Rich, I'll teach it. How about if I do 2 nights a week or 3 nights a week for a 4-week period, take a month off, and I'll do it 3 times a year. I said, okay, let me ask you a question. How much money will you need for the food? He said, Mr. Gober, I live in Pemberton Township. I'll buy the food. Now, the kitchen's real small. If you've been in the Nesbitt Center, you could never do it there. So I came to Dave Patriarch. I said, Dave, I can make a little counter. I'll buy a range. We'll make sure we turn the power off. We'll put it over in the corner. And unfortunately, Dave was nervous with it. It might be a legal issue. So we didn't do it. And that was a lot of years ago. Maybe I can get some people to think about it. I'll still pay to put that in there. I still want to make a difference. Thank you so much. I am done. I appreciate it. You've been very kind to give me the time I have tonight. Please, I hope you can get behind us with what we're thinking about. And as you heard, we haven't reached out to anybody for the money yet. Thank you very much. Any
Gober,
questions? Yes,
I have
sir.
a question for you. And thanks, by the way, for the scholarship, because I work in the school system also. Roughly, how many units do you have how many units do you have in Sunbury?
I actually own 61 houses, Mr. Gober.
Okay.
Yep. Sorry, yeah. I'm sorry, I beg your pardon. I'm sorry. I own 61 houses in Sunbury. I did own 71, sir. I sold 10. I actually have reached out to the Veterans Administration because I'm 71. It'll be the dumbest thing I've ever done financially to sell them, but it'll be the smartest thing to have a life.
Okay,
So go ahead. 61 I currently own, sir.
My question is about you requesting the cameras to put in place. You know, it's all part of volunteering. You have so many houses. How about to help the process going, install cameras in your house to kind of see the neighborhood also? Because when I first moved to Browns Mills, even though it's a pretty safe neighborhood like any place else, the first thing I did was put up cameras on my own so now I can see if something happened in the neighbor's house here or across the street. That could probably help. So if you are willing to, you know, get it started by installing your houses, 61 houses in Sunbury, it's a lot of surveillance areas to be seen.
Mr. Gardner, what we have done so far, there are many of my tenants that already have done that. I would be willing to participate. I have actually, when I didn't get any assistance, I reached out to Comcast. I reached out to ADP, I think is the name of the company.
Right.
Because I thought, what a home run. Can you imagine if Comcast stepped up and say, we have a tough neighborhood that needs our help, and we're going to put them in? Because we've had a few people that have told us, we're not talking about a $250,000 or a $500,000 property. I would be willing to participate. I would be willing to go to the other landlords. I probably couldn't afford to do it on every one of my 61 tenants, my rental properties.
Correct.
But I would participate with it, sir. And one of the problems in Pemberton Township, sir, has often been that many of the landlords don't get involved. Okay? I physically sat on the bus and took 45 kids to baseball games 40 years ago to the Phillies game. We did it a couple years ago. You have one by one. That organization is trying to make a difference. But to answer you, sir, I would be willing to participate. I would be willing to go out and try to get the landlords to help out with some money. But believe it or not, Mr. Gardner, I believe if you diligently, vigilantly go out to try to get that money, I won't be surprised that we would not get it.
But, you know,
Go ahead.
like you mentioned Comcast, they're not going to just come and do something like that. So if you have the ability with the other landlords, then the costs might come down. You have to put it in such a concentrated area. You can like spread it out even more to have a larger coverage, because I'm not sure that the total amount of structures are in Sunbury. You said 61?
I own 61, but I think, sir, there's probably, off the top of my head, if my memory serves me right, there's about 275 or 80 houses out there.
With different landlords?
With different landlords, some owners, other different landlords. And so I would be willing, sir, to participate. I want your help to realize that I want to work together with you. I probably have 10 of my tenants now, sir, that probably are paying that. It's a costly venture. You know, I don't know exactly what, $49 a month or something like that. They're struggling. Go ahead, sir.
But security system nowadays are very cheap. And I can say that. They're very cheap.
I would be willing to participate. All I'm trying to do is hopefully where we can get those streets covered and stop what's happening out there. I'm very willing to participate. I'm very willing to seek out the other landlords to try to get them to. And exactly how much, I would be willing to put a couple $1,000s towards it in a minute.
You know, like I said, I'm new here, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the procedure is as far as getting the cameras installed, but it starts with us. Start with you.
Well, we want to work with you, sir. Anytime you would ever like to meet with me, I will make myself available at any time, sir.
Definitely.
Okay?
Thank you.
Any other questions, anybody? Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you
Goldberg.
very much.
Sign in. Sorry.
Anyone else?
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Ken Festino. I own the apartment building at 17 Juliustown Road. And I've been having an ongoing problem with the Red Carpet Inn. And this has been going on. This has been going on since last year. I actually made formal in-person complaints on February 7th to code enforcement. And then I followed up with numerous emails, photos. Basically what has gone on is they have kicked in their 6-foot fence. Their residents are coming through, cutting through my property continuously all hours of the night. They're knocking on my tenants' doors at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, offering prostitution, trying to sell drugs. I mean, this is going on continuously. I was there cutting the grass, and I'm watching them. What they do is they wait behind the fence, and then the car comes in my property and parks behind the building, and then they come running out, and they make their drug deal, and then they run back through the fence. I mean, we've had the police out there I don't know how many times. They're trying to help out as much as they can. They have, I mean, one day they were actually sitting in the Rita's Water Ice parking lot, selling the drugs right out of the parking lot, and the one woman that was in the truck, she cut through my property, went through the hotel. I mean, and this is all happening very quickly. You have to understand how quickly this stuff happens. But on this one particular day, they were sitting there, and like I said, we've called the police I don't know how many times, and then by the time they get over there, these people have taken off already. So the one day, I was cutting a lawn, and I was watching what was going on, and I was like, well, this truck has been sitting right next to my property in the parking lot for quite a while, and now I'm seeing people come up, and they're making drug transactions. They're putting drugs on the seat of the vehicle, and the person's coming in, putting the money on the seat of the vehicle, and then they're all walking away, and then I watched the woman go back to the hotel. So my guess was she was going to purchase more drugs at the hotel. So with that, I called the police, and they wanted to know the license plate of the vehicle, and I said, well, I don't know. I can't really see it right now because of the way it's parked, and I'm standing right next to these people, so they heard me, so they tried to back up, and I said, well, I'm waiting for them to back up, and then I called in the plate, And I told them what the vehicle was, and this vehicle, I actually have pictures of it. It's been parked in my backyard many a times doing these drug transactions. And by luck, when they pulled out of the Rita's parking lot, a school bus stopped them with the lights, and they couldn't go anymore. And they were able to catch them over at the Wawa, and they made some arrests finally. But as soon as they're gone, there's other people going. Now, I was told that there was a court date on May 12th. I heard nothing about it. I followed up with subsequent complaints. Then I was told there was a court date on June 12th. It's also a requirement of their site plan to have this fence. I mean, they jump over this fence like it's not even there. All the pickets are broken off. There's holes in the fence. Now they've just basically ripped the entire thing so you can almost drive a car through there. It's so big. And if my tenants say something to them, they get threatened. I mean, my one tenant called the police a few times with this particular vehicle that was parking in there like continuously all day and night. And then they're standing up on the balcony and they're putting their fingers across the throat, telling her that she's going to be dead. I mean, this is kind of what Mr. Gober was saying. This is what my tenants are dealing with now. And this hotel, I mean, how much does it cost taxpayers? The police are there like all day long. I mean, this what's going on there? My female tenants can't even go to the garbage dumpster without somebody yelling some kind of sexual thing to them. I mean, and if I'm there and I go after them, then they run to the back of the hotel somewhere. I mean, this is continuous. I mean, I don't know how we can have a redevelopment plan for the center of town and have something like this going on a daily basis. If I get a potential tenant that comes in from somewhere like Presidential Lakes or Country Lakes, and they say, what is going on? What is this? I mean, I'm sure everybody on this board is aware of all the activity that goes on there. I don't know how I can complain about something from February and it's still not fixed when it's part of their site plan requirement. It's part of code enforcement. It's hanging, falling down. There's nails hanging out of it all over the place. I don't know how I have to come here before the board at this point for something as simple as this that should have been handled a long time ago.
Have you talked to administration about this?
All the emails indicate that Dave Benedetti has been involved in this.
Okay.
So
his superiors are sitting right there. That's what I'm asking. Have you talked to administration?
No, I have not.
Right. That's where you need to take your complaints to, because council really has no control over day-to-day operations. That's administration's job. So if you can get with them, I'm sure they'd be happy to listen to you.
So it's just going to continue then, it sounds like, because...
No, actually, they're actually pretty good with taking care of these things.
I mean, I don't want to say anything about the police because they've been trying to do everything they can, but this is... I mean, I can't have my tenants being threatened on a daily basis. I mean, it's just out of control. I mean, the place is, you know, people that run it just don't care about anything, and, you know, according to his emails, they don't care. They're not fixing the fence. Too bad. It's not going to happen. I mean, it's just to the point of being ridiculous. I mean...
Mayor, have you had any complaints from the other people about the hotel? I'm curious.
Obviously, I know there's been issues at
Right.
the establishment since it was built. It was a poor choice on the town's part many, many years ago, way long before any of us. And we are looking to deal with the type of business that is there and goes in our town. But as far as this type of activity, the zoning violations I was unaware of, I have taken the notes. I will be in touch with Mr. Benedetti. Well, I know Dennis will be in before me tomorrow. I know he'll be with Dave tomorrow to find out why the zoning violations aren't being addressed. We'll have an inspector out there tomorrow to address that. We've believed for years, even before I was mayor and when I was on the police department, that some of the problems that go on at that particular location are generated by Burlington County and their actions in sending a lot of their displaced individuals and families, unfortunately, to that location for permanent residence, which is actually a violation in itself here in the town. I believe we have a 30-day stay.
Actually, yes, it's part of what I've been looking into. It was rescinded years ago.
Well,
They
there
had
you
a
go.
60-day stay, and people can, and I said, they have 6 people living in a room. I have to get a CO. I can't have more than one person living in one of my studio apartments.
And I
How
agree
can
with
this
you. It's
be?
wrong, and I don't think we're getting the assistance from the agencies that are placing these individuals there like this. They place them and forget them instead of working to get them into permanent housing somewhere, and that's where I think there's a deficiency. But on our end, what we can do, we'll step up to do at this point. We are looking at the property, don't get me wrong. You mentioned the redevelopment plan. There's things I obviously can't discuss here in public at this point, but we've looked at that property and other properties as being problems within our town center. And we are addressing, as you've seen, Ken, you see some of the changes, some of the steps that we're starting to take. It's slow, but that's what government is. And we are working towards that. One of the other things that we are doing, identifying problems like this, we're bringing on new officers. We're in the midst right now of hiring 11 new officers. We understand that we could use more officers. I'm not going to say we're understaffed. We're authorized more than we have right now, but we believe we should be bringing more officers on to try and help identify, or not identify, but address some of these issues. So, we're looking at different ways to solve these problems, such as you're having, such as Mr. Gober and other residents. Not that Mr. Gober's a resident in Sunbury, although that would be interesting. Bring Rich down, bring him and a wife down, live there for a year, and join the party. Maybe we'll change the name for that. But that's not a challenge, Rich. You know that.
They were
but it would be. But no,
better
Ken,
7 years ago. I mean, they would not.
I know, but that apartment, even when I was on the job, I mean, you could walk through the stairwells and find just about anything on the walkways there, whether it was needles, spoons, all the paraphernalia from what they've done, and I have no doubt what you're saying is occurring. I believe it. So we'll address it with the police chief and try and get some assistance there, but we'll also address it with the zoning officer to enforce the site plan requirements for that property and make sure that we send an inspector in there to go over that, not only for the fence, but any other issues that we can, I don't want to say put the pressure on them, but let them know that, we know they're there and there is a problem and they need to step up their game a little bit.
He's gotten violations, but he just...
But, one thing I would like to mention on that, though, they do have surveillance cameras.
I know.
And the problem's still there. So what I would say to that is surveillance cameras are not the solution. They only record the incidences, and not all the time do they solve that case that you see it all the time. Can you identify this person? Maybe, maybe not. They help. They're part of the solution, but that solution, not only in your situation, but also in the previous situation that we heard about, comes from a community. It comes from many individuals. You can't just turn to the government and say, you got to fix this. The government can't fix everything. If you expect the government to fix everything, then you've got to expect the cost that goes along with it. And that's the thing that we all complain about, including myself, that government's too expensive. And we can't just look for the government for the answers. It's just not big enough. So we have to be a part of that solution. And I know, Ken, I can't ask you to be a part of it. You do your part with your property. I know you keep it up pretty decent there. You're trying to make a difference. But when you've got people coming in from next door, tearing down the fence and soliciting, well, that makes it challenging for you.
I get the older police all the time telling the new guys, hey, you've never had to be there. When I first started, we were at that building 20 times
all the time.
And now that guy bought it,
a few doors in that building myself, I can tell you, but and they're not there like that now. So that in itself says a lot about what you're doing for that area, and we need to do a little more on the surrounding property owners so that we can convince them they have to be a part of the solution also. They can't just rent to anyone in that hotel. I think it's more of a motel, and that's where the problem lies.
Yeah, that's where we have a conflict, because the tenants that I rent to, and I'll leave my place empty till I can get good people, and then they see all this, and they say, look, I can't stay here.
They want
I
to be
gotta go."
residents, right, in your place.
Gotta go.
And next door, they shouldn't be residents, and that's where the problem is. They are residents, and, it's promoting a bad atmosphere for, what it was intended to be. But both situations that we've heard here that were brought to council, obviously, we can discuss the problems with the community. On the previous issue, I can tell you that they're the one by one. There's other organizations. There's residents that I've spoke with that live in that area, that own homes, that want to be involved in the solution. It's getting all these individuals together. It's not just one entity that's going to solve this problem. The police aren't going to solve it. You can't solve it with enforcement. We can curb it a little, maybe change the attitude, sending all the police in there, but we have to do other things. There's got to be enforcement with code enforcement, which we're addressing now. We're hiring 3 to 4 people in that area. So we're bringing people on to address these issues so that we can, start identifying the violations and address that part of it. We're bringing officers on, and this all comes at a cost to the taxpayers, to the government. You don't bring 10, 11 officers on a department and not expect to, dish out a substantial amount of money, over the years. So we're doing those things, but then there has to be that community involvement. We've got to get community organizations. We've got to get landlords involved. We've got to get residents involved to take control of these situations. We're not asking you to be out on the street and fight crime, but, identify that crime and don't be afraid to report it. Don't be afraid to tell the kid next door, hey, that's not what you're supposed to be doing. I know if I did something wrong in my neighborhood, although we were all family, it was all Italians in that neighborhood.
Here we go.
You got your butt whooped. And then when you got home, you got whooped again. Because it
Many
wasn't
moons ago,
it was everyone else. No, it's
Not
times
the
are different.
same.
I understand it, but it's not just one thing that's going to solve it. But we will address the code enforcement and the zoning violations there, and we'll inform the chief that you've got that issue, Ken. That's not
I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Phillips?
Good evening, everybody in general.
Good evening.
I've been living in Pemberton Township for most 38 years as OMB. In the last 20 years, and I stood up in this podium, and I spoke in reference to the Sunbury. My co-workers, reason they live in there, and everybody got a yes go. If they don't make enough money, this is the only place decent they can live. And because they live in the section, we should not label no one. And those children are there. They are our tomorrow's future. We gotta take care of them. The seniors live there. Been living there all their life. We gotta look after them. But what I encourage the Sunbury section, Mr. Gobert, in the township, in the residents, in that development, we gotta come all together and work as a team. Township, police department, residents, landlords, everybody has to work together. I came from Mercer County. I used to live in Trenton. It was not an easy place to live either, okay?
30 years ago.
We cannot be afraid because we see something happen on the street and we go close our curtains. That's not the answer. The answer it is, the police cannot be 24/7 in our doorsteps. But we gotta help them too, with our eyes, and pass information to them, and they can respond more quicker. I know that we have a lot of sections in Pemberton Township that we going to need more support in the police department for the residents. I've been come to Brownsmell between 10 and 11 o'clock in the night because I'm coming from someplace and I drove around It's like a dead town. Why? Because the people are afraid. Acme, the same place. And I've been crossed. I used to be a state worker. I used to take injured employees after I picked them up from the hospital to Sunbury. And my co-worker stated to me, I'm going to open the door as soon as I can. It was 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I recall the street would look like yes, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, filled out with people in all, the young generation and everything. He said, don't stop for no one, run them over. When I arrived to my workplace, I stated to my duty officer, don't ever send me to the place. Why? Because my life was in jeopardy. And also my co-worker. Was not fair for him. But he got to come from the hospital. I got to drop him off. But what I made my point is, all the residents, I encourage them, they got a community center there. Why everybody doesn't get together and once a month, even other community, go and give them some suggestion, and they can work together their problems. Don't be afraid because you think the neighbor across the street is looking at you, the cop is coming in to your house. Don't be afraid because you know what? If you are afraid to call the police, you will be the next one in line. Don't let them win the battle. That's your property, or that's where your house is. Don't be afraid. Okay? When I used to live in the city, I was looking the same way. And until this day, I be honest with you, I'm not afraid to no one. Right now, I want to bring in reference to my development, Presidential Lakes. I do my cleaning and cutting my lawn every 2 weeks. I was out of the country, I just got back. I was picking up after the storm all the twigs and everything. I found it out that my street between Tennessee Trail and New Hampshire Road, found it out in one corner, found it out 4 bags, the empty drugs, found it out in the other corner, 3 more. That's telling me that we're not going, that we're not taking care of our problems. Especially now the school is off. All the kids on the street and everything. And I also was watching TV and the news one day. I listen to the radio in my car when I'm driving around. Pemberton Township has been labeled one of the main markets in drugs. Southampton, Medford, East Hampton, Mount Holly, Camden, Burlington, Willingboro. But I think we are around number 5 or 6, our town. And it's not, that doesn't look good. And I be honest with you, what I see, I'm not afraid to report it. I'm not afraid because you know what? I'm a taxpayer. And I have the right to live as a decent citizen. But don't be afraid of people who live in Sunbury. I be willing, I be honest with you, attend the meetings. In possibility, each community can help them and give us an idea what they can do. I know the police has been very busy there. I'm a mother for one of the officers, okay? And I know it's not an easy task. When you leave your home, you do not know your return. I was a firefighter. And my family used to say, Mother, you cannot do that. I said, you know what? When you put your mind on it, if your day comes, that's okay. When you go to work, thinking about it, yes, it's work. Don't think about it, the worst. But I just want to let the Sunbury the neighborhood know that I will be willing to attend the meetings. I don't have a community center. I don't have nothing in Presidential Lake, okay? Yeah. For the time being. But you guys got a beautiful community center there. And that if people can get together in there, and everybody, I'm pretty sure they will be there and help each other. Like I said, don't be afraid. And never close your curtains. Keep those curtains open. This is the way you see what is going on. Your eyes and your ears. Okay, I'm going to speak in reference to my development. Thank you, the public work. I got back from out the country Saturday night, early in the morning, and I noticed the yield sign for the entry Presidential Lake and the way out wasn't there. Well, when I went to church, I just came by in daytime and I just noticed that somebody knocked it down. I did not report it Tuesday. I was very busy, but I reported Tuesday, and this morning that thing was up. And can you give an update, Mr. Mayor, in reference to the community center and the fire department for Pemberton Township and Presidential Lakes?
I can tell you that we have received numbers from the developer and that we are meeting with Public Works tomorrow to go over those numbers and hopefully bring something to council very soon.
Okay, so far that's what you have. Okay, I also brought it up in the last meeting in reference to portable pots in the community. Why are you, as a mayor, and the one that showed with the administrator, are against to put a simple portable pot for the parks, when every single town I go, Mr. Mayor, they don't have regular toilet open at the time of the day, the portable pot is there. Put one handicap portable pot, that's in general, anybody just can go there. You have to just have something for the people, come on. We're not in the boondocks. We're in a township. We're taxpayers. Look into that, please. Okay? Thank you.
Peter Sawyer, 180 Kinsley Road. My family and I lived in Morristown for over 10 years, and because my wife ended up in a wheelchair, if you're not 55 and above, you're not going to get anywhere. So we ended up moving into Sunbury. Thankfully, Mr. Gober has a place. It's only got one step. You know, I spent a lot of time pushing the wheelchair from Burger King when I would take the 317. Medical transportation's a joke. Now I don't know what's going on with the bridge. But ADA, especially in Sunbury, let alone anywhere else, is a joke. And it's hard when you can't even turn around and walk a wheelchair safely in the street, let alone on the sidewalks. And everybody says, well, the homeowner should be responsible, or the township should be responsible, the county, the state. Unfortunately, ADA is the biggest joke there is anywhere in the government, because for years, if it's a new development, they get everything. In a town like this, you get nothing, and unfortunately, they fix nothing. Now, I know in front of my house, because there's a drain, my wife has a power chair. We've been fighting the insurance company for over a year to get a ramp put in. Well, even if I get the ramp put in, the sidewalk is too small between the two houses. And the insurance company said, well, because it is two houses, we would actually have to put a separate sidewalk, because you can't, it's a shared sidewalk even though the same owner owns both halves. They wouldn't allow a sidewalk to be put in. Well, of course, the state and all that says, well, we're not paying for it anyway. But I can't even get my wife up and down where the apron is because the lip is too high. Now, obviously, when they put it in, yeah, the corners may be okay, but to get my wife in her wheelchair down to the corner is crazy. Now, I know I see people riding their power chairs all over and all that, and I've asked, well, you got to pick and choose where you can go up and how far you can ride. So that's something that really needs to be addressed, is safety issues. ADA, we got to find a way of somehow turning around. The other thing is, as far as the cameras, years ago, I know there was a sting operation where someone was trying to buy missiles to shoot down the planes. Well, plain and simple, we have gigantic gas stations flying over top of us 24/7. We just got the new contract for the super tankers that are going to be here next year. Well, where's Homeland Security and all that? Why can't they chip in safety-wise? Because I tell you, 24/7, I can look up and see a plane above my head no matter what. The township should be reaching out to somebody like that saying, we're on your flight path, what can you do to help places? Because there's more domestic terrorism than there is terrorism in this country today. And safety-wise, you know, when you got planes flying over you 24/7, they can help the neighborhoods out too, because it's their planes that are flying over all the time. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Good point.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Abraham Mashinsky. My first time in front of a committee, so excuse my ill-preparedness. First of all, I want to thank Richard Goldberg for making me aware of this meeting. I know he's been intensely working for a while now on having Sunbury renamed and improving the neighborhood, whether with cameras, etc. I understand that there was a period that there was rejection due to cost. Cameras have significantly dropped. Cost of cameras is next to nothing now. I understand even next to nothing is still something, and the township is stressed for funds. I want to focus on solutions a little bit instead of the problems. We're discussing possibly having a once-a-month meeting. Somebody suggested. I think that we're in the 21st century. We can do the virtual world. There's forums where we can have a public forum. Everybody can write in their opinion. There can be a narrator to make sure that it's okay. And we can hold people accountable. If X can do, if X commits that he's going to do it, what did he do about it? Let him not tell one person one thing, or we're working on it, open-ended. Let's hear. And we could also go back to follow up with whether it's a state level, county level, whoever it is that we're asking to reach out to. Here, so-and-so says that I've been reaching out to you. You have here 500 people on the blog. We're all waiting to hear an answer. Please respond, etc. It's a way to get people involved. Another possibility is having community watch from within the community. I don't know if there is such a thing in the neighborhood yet. You put them in charge. They're the best police for themselves. Nobody. They all want, not all, but most of them want, best for their children. Encouraging positive, not just more policing, but more community outreach by putting them actually, giving them recognition, whether it's holding, once a half a year awards for them for giving their time for volunteering, etc. Instead of hiring 12 new police officers, if you invest that money by getting 60 volunteers, it can do so much more within the community over there itself. My personal experience driving down over here once, I was pulled over by a police officer, got hit with multiple tickets, traffic violations. I'm a pretty good citizen. I, may have broken some violation. I had a PVA card just to, not that it's a get out, free, but whenever I've had an incident with the police officer, they respected that. They gave me the courtesy. The officer just took it away, gave me a very hard time. I came down to meet with him in person to talk to him after the incident. Very rough. It's just the liaison, between the community and police. I think there could be a lot of, better relations that may improve the situation. Again, this is just as a spectator. And the cheapest one of all, I think, is renaming the area, which I hear is very receptive over here, which I'm glad. People don't want to be associated at all, any which way, whether investors, lenders, buyers, tenants, anything of the sort. and that's the first step, I think, to move in the right direction. Just on another note, there was I had my unit. I purchased it from a foreclosure, surprise, surprise, and I've been trying to get tenants in there. So I applied for. Obviously, the electric meter was taken off the house. No cameras, no accountability. Electric meter was taken off.